Good to go. Take this out. Thank you, Phil, for the introduction and for helping us to organize today's event. Good morning, everyone. Before I get started, I would also like to thank Dwana Bradley, the chair of the Des Moines Public Schools School Board. And I'm also grateful for the support of the other board members who aren't with us here this morning. For the past decade, I have awakened every morning and traveled to our district office as superintendent of Des Moines Public Schools. I do that every morning with the weight and the hopes and dreams of 31,000 students on my mind. In a state I treasure, a city I love, and a community that has embraced my vision to provide equitable opportunities and outcomes for all children, even during some of the most turbulent moments of our lives. School shootings, derechos, budget shortfalls, and a period of time in which I'm sure none of us will ever forget, the insidious COVID-19 pandemic. But soon, that will change. After deep thought and careful deliberation with my family, I have decided to step down as superintendent of our beloved school district. This decision comes after 10 transformational years of putting students first and working side by side with some of the most distinguished professionals in education. Though my heart is heavy when I think of my final moments with DMPS, I remain fully committed to the work of implementing our collective vision for students. As I reflect on this very humbling, soul-wrenching work, I feel an enormous sense of satisfaction knowing the systems and tools that we have put in place will continue to amplify our educational ambition for the most underserved students in our school district. Aristotle once said, "The roots of education are bitter, but the fruit is sweet." Words that serve as a great reminder that nothing of great importance is ever accomplished without hard work and dedication. Nothing, absolutely nothing. And I could not have done this work alone. I am forever indebted to the supportive teachers who rolled up their sleeves, the resilient principals who burned the midnight oil, and our collaborative district leadership and support staff who invested their time, heart, and energy to ensure the next generation is ready for our global future. And they are ready. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank my wife and my son Eli, who understand that the superintendency is not a job. It is a way of life that we all live through together. I will always hold gratitude in my heart for this community. Des Moines is where I have truly grown as an educator. Des Moines is where I have raised my family. Des Moines will always be home. And this work has been tough. Des Moines is different than other school districts in Iowa. As big cities go, Des Moines is a small one. But being an urban center in a traditionally rural state brings with it unique challenges and unique rewards. But with each obstacle we've faced, we've forged ahead. With over 31,000 students, we are nearly double the size of Cedar Rapids, Iowa's second largest school district. We educate more children than the public school districts of Kansas City, Indianapolis, Minneapolis, Pittsburgh, San Jose, and St. Louis. DMPS has 1/10 the enrollment of Chicago public schools, yet has a greater proportion of students receiving free and reduced price lunch, 76%, compared to their 69%. Add to this, our proportion of students identified as English language learners is on a par with theirs, something not many would believe, but it's true. And we've met every challenge with a viable solution for our students. Indeed, Des Moines is truly an international city. DMPS students speak 83 languages and hail from 109 different nations. These factors bring challenges with them for sure. However, without challenges, there would be no accomplishments. And I could not be prouder of what we have achieved. The driving force behind my administration has always been leaning heavily into providing equitable opportunity. Excuse me. I'm going to take a little sip of water. Pardon me. The driving force behind my administration has always been leaning heavily into providing equitable opportunities for our students, faculty, and staff. This has been an absolute non-negotiable for me. We implemented standards-based grading, redrew district boundaries, made every one of our schools a school of choice, increased enrollment in advanced placement courses, and dramatically shifted the composition of the student body attending Central Campus and Central Academy. We built a state-of-the-art early childhood center in our urban core, created a center for new Americans, developed an urban leadership program, and we have better empowered student voice. We've been busy. This has been my life's work. Equity isn't a buzzword for me. It's at the core, at the very heart of my work. It has been since the start of my tenure. The Blue Contract, with its accompanying Master's of Science degree in Culturally Responsive Leadership, continues to transform our teaching staff, allowing us to retain 90% of the new teachers in a field where nearly half leave the profession after the first 5 years. And our pipeline work, in partnership with the Wallace Foundation, has increased our percentage of building leaders of color. This makes me proud. And while equity in academics has been my focus, I've also worked to ensure students learn in the best classrooms possible. 10 years ago, our district had 40 portable classrooms. Today, those have been eliminated, and all of our students, regardless of zip code, regardless of program, learn in air-conditioned brick and mortar buildings, including 2 newly constructed schools, the Jesse Franklin Taylor Center and Edmonds. In addition, we have won accolades for our energy efficient buildings, which are better for the environment and allow us to drive millions more general fund dollars into instruction. And that brings me to another major focus of my administration, fiscal responsibility and stewardship. For 10 strong consecutive years, we've maintained a healthy fund balance and spending authority balance, despite the last 10 years being the worst in the state's history for school funding. And 2 years ago, we passed the district's first maximum voter-approved physical plant and equipment levy, or PEPL, providing an additional $6.5 million annually to support student technology, while at the same time lowering the tax burden for our community. DMPS is fiscally sound, producing more college-ready graduates with fewer resources than most districts across this nation. And I'm proud. And finally, as I bid Des Moines farewell, I can't help but reflect on our 2019 record high graduation rate, a major accomplishment that was only achieved through true collaboration and the hard work of our students, many who had been counted out. In the glory of that moment, I thought of the profound words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a true civil rights icon. Intelligence plus character. That is the goal of true education. Goodbye, Des Moines. Through tears, sweats, laughs, civil unrest, and even a global pandemic, our great American city, in the heart of our beautiful nation, proves our educational system is resilient. And although we may face the impossible, together, we are still capable of producing leaders for the world stage of tomorrow. Thank you for your time this morning, your support, and allowing me to serve you all for a decade of challenges and triumphs. I'm truly grateful.
As chair of the Des Moines School Board, I want to express my gratitude to Dr. Ahart for not only the dedication and commitment he has given to DMPS over the past 15 years as both superintendent as well as principal, but also for the time and attention that you gave to me and my board colleagues. The job of a school district superintendent is difficult on many levels, including the fact that they have 7 bosses, those of us elected to serve on the school board. The public doesn't always see the time and effort that a superintendent puts in his job, working with board members, administrators, and principals, parents, and the community at large. It is a 24/7 commitment. In working with Dr. Ahart over the past 3 years, I have found him to be accessible, candid, and sincere in his approach to his work. His commitment to DMPS is evidenced by the opportunities he took to advance our district and the role and importance of public education and the multiple ways he showed up for our staff and our students. Whether lobbying at the state capitol or cheering in the stands of an athletic event, Dr. Ahart has always operated with the interests of our community, our district, and our students in mind. On behalf of the entire board, I would like to share my thanks and gratitude with Dr. Ahart. He moved into the role following Dr. Nancy Sebring and at a time when funding challenges, demographic shifts, and related academic achievement gaps were widening. Dr. Ahart's mastery of the state's complicated education funding formula, coupled with his strong understanding of education issues at the state and national levels, is to be commended. As a member of the Council of Great City Schools Board of Directors, Dr. Ahart has used that position to advance the work of the district while also using it to stay current on federal education policy and trends. He has also played a pivotal role in leading Iowa's Urban Education Network, a consortium of Iowa's largest public school districts, formed to represent the unique interests of urban public schools. Dr. Ahart has managed through some of this district's most challenging times, ranging from the global pandemic to the more recent work done to develop the Iowa Alliance Conference, comprised of Iowa's 11 largest high schools, who will begin competition in the 2022-23 seasons and everything in between. During his 15 years with the district, Dr. Ahart has never shied away from the challenges and opportunities that come with leading Iowa's largest school district. He has met every challenge while seeking out new opportunities for our students and families. And for this, I simply want to say thank you. Dr. Ahart's resignation, if accepted by the school board tomorrow, will take effect on June 30th. In the weeks ahead, we will appoint an interim superintendent for the 2022-23 school year. Finally, we will be conducting a national search for a new superintendent to be in place by the start of the 2023-24 school year. This will be an extensive process designed to find the best possible person to lead DMPS. In the weeks ahead, the school board will be developing our search plan and have much more information to share at a future date. I would now like to open it up for any questions.
Uh, I think it has more to do with the cumulative effect of 10 years of being in this role. As I tried to highlight in my remarks, we're a very different district than we were 10 years ago. Not only, and I'm not referring really to the demographic changes that we've continued to see change, but we're a much tighter system, and Des Moines Public Schools is in a really good place right now, considering especially the record low funding that we've had over the last decade. And so I feel it's a good time for me to take a step away, to reevaluate where I want to go with my career, and turn the reins over to new leadership. Well, I guess I can say that the last 2 years didn't feel like 2 years. It felt more like 4 or 5 years. I think you ask any educator that, they'll tell you. And as you've seen around the country, not just in education, but in other lines of work, people are doing some reevaluating of where they are professionally, given the sort of new perspective that they have on the world after suffering through a 2-year plus global pandemic. Well, the first line is really what's pertinent there. The second line just is the rhymed couplet from from the song. But yeah, I mean, I think we have a good groove going here, and we have developed leadership very effectively in this district. There was a time, actually, when I was hired as principal, that every time we had a principal opening, there was sort of a panic at central camp at central office, because where are we going to find a new principal? And we've invested a lot into our system and developing talent, especially at the teacher level on up, so that now roughly 90%, I think it's a little bit north of 90% of our principals, even with an increasing number of principals of color, come from inside, because we actually have a system that starts at what's happening in the classroom and then expands out from there. So there are, if there's a decision that I wouldn't say there's a decision I'd like to take back on, but I would say if I had to do it all over again, I would have spent more time lobbying the community for more support. I think that we've worked really hard to protect the classroom from really historic budget concerns, and have tried to not have the impact felt at the classroom level, at the student level, and that's come with a huge cost. All of our folks are doing more work, longer hours, and then when you add the pandemic on top of it, we need more help. That's not specific to DMPS, but when you're operating a district like ours, in a state like ours currently is, the challenges are monumental, and there are a lot of things working directly against our efforts. So I would have spent more time from the beginning through the end more actively lobbying the community for more support. No. I missed part of that. Mhm. I think I think it retaught me something. When it comes down to it, what we want is for all of our kids to be healthy and thriving, and a lot of the students in Des Moines public schools are more reliant on the school system than they are in other places to be thriving and healthy and happy. And so I think it really brought back into clear focus why I was drawn to education in the first place 31 years ago, to really serve kids. And in schools, we traditionally think of that as, with academic markers, obviously, but especially through the pandemic, I think it highlighted how reliant our communities are, especially urban communities, on our school systems. And while parents and families want excellent academic outcomes for their students, just as all of our educators do as well, we can't just focus on academics, or we'll never get there. And I think the pandemic magnified that in spades. I couldn't tell you that. I wasn't there. I wasn't there, so I can't comment.
Job as a superintendent is like, you can't think of it as like 1 year of the nature of the job. Frankly, you're already exceeding the national average.
Mhm. Right. Yeah, yeah, I certainly get your point. It's yeah, the average tenure for some a superintendent in an urban district is somewhere in the neighborhood of 2, a little less or a little more, depending on what year you measure the average. And politics are largely the reason that that is so. As Ms. Bradley mentioned, it really is a 24/7 job, and when you're trying to make, I mean, if you think about this logically, you have a superintendent who has, in my case, 5,000 staff, and all of our staff aren't aligned, politically or um, philosophically, etc. And they all have, what they want from their work and how the district operates. And you certainly have what we have little control over. We have state code, which has been changing pretty drastically over the last 4 or 5 years, especially in a way that's arguably detrimental to public schools. So that's a huge piece of it. And then, you're serving a board of 7 elected directors, and I've had in my situation over 10 years, I've served with 20 different board members. So that's a lot of shift and a lot of, trying to figure out where the center is. And so politics definitely plays a huge role in the superintendency, especially in the particular dynamics that we have in Des Moines right now. We're a very red state right now. We're the urban center. We're by far the most diverse. We have more need on a per pupil basis just because of the makeup of our student body, and most of the vectors at the state level are working directly against what it is that we're trying to achieve. So that dog year analogy, I think, is very apt. Not isolated to the COVID experience, but it puts a lot of years on in a sort of compressed fashion, for sure. So do I walk away sour? No, I don't. When you're in the thick of it and trying to, kind of manage all of these battles on various fronts, it can get frustrating and exhausting. But I can tell you that and this may sound corny, but it's absolutely true. Our students give me tremendous faith in where we can be in 10 years or 15 years. We have some extremely intelligent students out there who are looking at the world differently, who have access to information that I could never have thought of having access to, even when I was in college, at their fingertips. And they have teachers who are working their tails off to make sure that they're critical thinkers and problem solvers. So that's really encouraging to me. If I were outside of the realm of education, I'm not sure I'd feel quite as encouraged about what the future possibilities could be. It was a tough time for everybody, for sure. I'm certainly not saying I would have wanted to switch places with the governor through the pandemic. That's for sure. I do think there's a lot of room in our state to grow a political approach that involves civility, and I think that's been lost in large part in our state. It used to be, even in my tenure, it was much easier 10 years ago to go up to the Capitol and talk with members of both parties about issues of concern for the district. And you can certainly, it's the polarization that has transpired over the last 10 years is palpable, for sure. And it does feel, in some cases, a bit personal. And that's not how you make good policy. And if we're trying to serve all of our citizens, then we have to have a bit more of an objective and civil approach, is what I would argue. No, actually, I think our community stepped up pretty well with the whole COVID, and I don't know if Ms. Bradley has a different opinion on that. You know, we worked really hard to connect all of the students that didn't have internet access to the internet. We were able to do that successfully. We got laptops in everybody's hands. We've been very aggressive in pursuing any dollars available through the federal government to support all of our COVID related activities. I'm just saying that more generally, I think that our community has to have a better understanding of how important public schools are to the overall health and well-being of the community. And you can certainly make economic arguments, but I don't like to isolate it just to that. You know, you can talk about how much it takes to educate a student and how much it takes to how much the cost is for one incarcerated person in the state, and that math is blindingly obvious. But when we talk about economic development and having a workforce, especially now, I mean, we're at in the 70s, our current unemployment rate would have registered as zero, because they used to quit keeping track at 4%. They said, well, 4% is essentially 100% employment. We've been hovering around the 2% range. And so what we're seeing because of that, you know, I'm speaking very broadly here, that lack of appreciation is we have fewer and fewer young people going into education, which is a problem right now. It's going to be a tremendous problem 2 years from now, or 3 years from now, or 4 years from now. And our students, you know, deserve to have the playing field level through public education as it was originally envisioned. And we can't continue to starve out public schools and expect the results that all of us want and that our children deserve. So I just think we can't use our bully pulpit enough to make that case.
It's kind of hard to answer that question right now, just because as a board, that's something that we're going to finalize together collectively. Of course, we want, you know, a leader that's going to be passionate about public education and the board goals in which we have set right now, and learning more about our student outcomes focused governance framework, which we're currently delving into right now. So we want a superintendent that's definitely going to be on board with that. So I know from a board standpoint, those are the things that we're going to be looking forward to, but also in the future here, we'll be talking soon about what that will look like in its totality and be able to share that at a later time. But we definitely want someone that's going to be lined up with the governance style that we are currently delving into right now. I think in any profession, when someone says they're retiring, there's an element of surprise, you know, because the leader that you have, you know, you want them to stay. We know Dr. Ahart's been here for over 10 years. So I think that in any realm of work, when someone says that they're leaving after putting in those long years that he's put in, there's always an element of surprise. So I think it's pretty obvious. You don't expect it, but you do understand it.
Are you looking in-house for the next superintendent or not?
So we have not disclosed what that process is going to look like yet. Really what we wanted to do as a board, and what I'm urging my colleagues to do, is we wanted to focus on today first, and then we will at a later time, as I said in my statement, we will share what that process will look like with the community going forward. I don't know if there's really a level of concern. As I shared in my statement, we're going to be taking our time with this process. So we're not, you know, trying to move very quickly. We wanted to get through today, and then we will meet as a board to talk about what our next step will be. So I won't say that there's a concern. We just have to plan out that process and share that with you all as soon as we can.